Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it after 40, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Today, we are talking with Mark Stancil. Mark started his career as a creative executive while working as a computer and systems integration professional, so he has that rare combination of technical expertise and creative excellence. Mark is now the CEO and editor-in-chief with Terminus Media, a company that creates comics, graphic novels, animates award-winning shows for government, private, and public companies, and they work on their own creative projects. Mark himself has written comics and a full-length graphic novel, Ascension. I'm really looking forward to learning more. Mark, thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Could you tell us a little bit more about your journey to getting where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. I was a writer in Atlanta back in the 90s, eons ago.
Back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. And I was writing screenplays. I was a film buff. I loved movies. I decided that while I was working my day job in data integration, that data integration is doing calculus all day. Mm-hmm. It's precise. It has to be a certain way, no aberrations, nothing out of the ordinary. So I just felt a real need to express myself creatively. Mm-hmm. So I come from a long line of writers. My great uncle was Joel Chandler Harris, the guy who wrote the Brer Rabbit books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, long line of Southern writers living here in Atlanta. So I just started writing, and I really enjoyed writing. Writing is work, but it's good work, I think, when you come up with something. Maybe you read a few days or a few weeks later and you go, wow, that's good. Just started writing screenplays and met some guys I went into a local comic shop to just see what they had and got to talking to the owner. And he mentioned there was some other guys who were writers and, hey, why don't you guys get together and maybe you can come up with something. So yeah, we started meeting, and this was back when the movie Fight Club, Brad Pitt came out, yeah. Chuck Palahniuk. We started meeting, and we called our group Write Club, and we started writing screenplays. And then we had all these screenplays, and we're like, we don't live in Los Angeles or New York. How are we going to get these screenplays in front of anybody who can get a budget together and actually make them into a film? So we started making comic books, really, to promote our screenplays. And then we started making animation to promote our comics and graphic novels. And then clients started asking us to make animation and graphic novels and comics for them. One of our biggest projects was with the CDC. You might have heard of it. We ended up doing over an hour of animation with them to promote HIV and AIDS prevention.
Great.
Yeah. So just it grew from there, and the team has changed and grown and been refined over time. But yeah, that's how we got started. And now we're still here in Atlanta that has a booming film business. So we feel that we're really positioned to take advantage of that and to offer services and to create content that fans and folks will love.
That is fantastic. I love this story. So basically you were doing a job that the data integration was very serious and structured. And yeah. You went out to find a creative edge. You met other people who were working on the creative edge. And essentially you developed a group that was for fun for you guys. And you turned it into this amazing company.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. And it is fun. And it was fun. There was always, anytime you have a group of people, you're going to have disagreements. And there was a fist fight or two here and there. Yeah. It's funny, early and this was after the group started working with artists and making comic books. When we started doing that, we changed our name from Write Club to Kindred because we're kindred spirits, whatever. We're making comics together. And one of the guys who came to the group and was a writer was just a jerk, and he was very abrasive, and he said the wrong thing to one of the artists, and you've got like Kung Fu Central.
Oh, no. So what happened from that? What did you guys learn from that?
I think at the time we were all like horrified. Oh my gosh, conflict is bad. But I think as time goes on, I think we've come to learn that conflict is absolutely necessary. So it's not that conflict, but it's not that conflict is good or bad. Conflict is like fire. Fire in the fireplace, good. Fire in the fireplace, bad. So it's about turning that conflict into something positive. That particular conflict ended with one of the guys leaving, and that, not to go into a lot of details, but that was not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That this guy left the group because any time, maybe when you're in high school, you were assigned a group project, and
Mm-hmm.
we all know what happens with a group project, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's one person or maybe two people in the group who actually do all the work, and the rest just ride the
Yeah.
coattails. So
Yes.
conflict is a great way to get rid of the people who are talking a lot and not really doing any work.
Mhm.
We like to work with people who are working
Yes.
with Terminus Media. And there's tons of aspiring, quote unquote, writers out there who don't write anything. There's tons of people who want to be a professional artist working at a professional level, but they don't want to put in the time at the drawing table to actually learn to draw things like hands and facial expressions, these things that are necessary to communicate a story when you're communicating it with art and sequential arts storytelling.
Right.
So yeah, conflict is good. And if a conversation needs to be had, have it like now.
Mm-hmm.
When can we talk about this? How about now works for me. But the other thing is to be very clear with when we first started Terminus, it was all for one and one for all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we had our first black and white comic book with 5 or 6 little 8-page stories in there, it came time to get it printed, and we passed around the hat. All those all for one and one for all people start looking around the room.
Who else?
Yeah, who else is going to contribute? So in situations like that, you get a feel for everybody on the team has a different role. Everybody's good at something, but the thing I'm good at is leading creative teams to holding up a standard, a flag, and saying, "Follow me. We're going to do this." It's the Walt Disney approach, where he told all of these artists and animators, "We're going to make the first full-length animated feature." And they're all like, "This is crazy. This is great. We're going to do this."
Yes.
Because artists have that wild hair, crazy. They love to do something new and different that nobody's seen before. So
They want to create. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yes. I love it. So what do you think of all the things that you've done in your life? What do you feel has been one or two of your greatest successes? And what did you learn from it?
That's a good question. I'll give you two things. One of the more recent projects that I've started over the past year is actually writing a novel about my dad and his life.
Ooh.
He grew up in Fairplay, South Carolina. He was the son of the town drunk. There was never enough money, never enough food, moving from place to place. One a little bit ahead of the bill collector. And his dream as a kid was to one day live in a brick house. Today, he lives in a big old brick house on a hill, and he still drives an old 1966 Ford truck because that's what he loves to drive. I'm proud of that, and honoring my dad in that way, just on a personal level, means a lot to me. In terms of Terminus Media, an accomplishment there, in the beginning of 2020, before the pandemic really hit in force, we talked about the future and what kind of company we want to be and what kind of people we want to be in the industry. And there's a lot of stuff out there, Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and all these other platforms, Disney Plus, and it's great stuff. But some of it's not exactly like family friendly, right? A lot of comics aren't family friendly.
Yeah.
Their readership is like adult males, basically,
Mhm.
or young guys. We were talking about what we wanted to work on next. And the two things we decided to work on were Dominion, Follow the House of Saul, which is based on the first king of Israel. And as told in the book of 1 Samuel in the Bible, Baron Bell, one of our lead creative in the company, he's like, "This is what I want to work on. I don't want to work on anything else. I'm tired of working on generic stuff. I want to do something that I'm really passionate about." And so he pitched it to me, and it was basically lines in space. And the story, all the characters are anthropomorphic creatures. The good guys are warm-blooded creatures like wolves, lions, and rhinoceroses and gorillas. And all the bad guys, the Philistines, are reptiles like cold-blooded creatures,
Mhm.
crocodiles, etc. And
Yeah.
and it all happens in an interplanetary system called Dominion, and there's laser battles and battle mechs that fight one another and all this stuff. And so he pitched it to me, and 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 it was just crazy enough. Like we were talking about, Walt Disney wanted to do that first full length animated feature. It's that kind of good crazy where you're like, nobody's ever seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we pursued that. We're just finishing up the third chapter now. We also published a book called Samson Rise that is based on a biblical character, Samson. But just changing, I guess the thing to answer the question, the second thing I'm proud of is just turning the ship of Terminus Media to be more focused on faith and family friendly content that you can enjoy with your 4-year-old, but is also entertaining if you're a 50-year-old guy.
That's great. Really opening up your whole audience in a new way.
Yeah, absolutely. When we said we're going to change our direction, there were some creators in our company that were like, I'm not down with that. I don't want to do that. And we were like, I hear what you're saying, but this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes in business, you have to say, this is where we're going. And there's some people who are like, I don't want to go there. And you just have to be like, good luck to you.
Yeah. You got to follow the path you believe is right. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about the flip side? What about a time you dealt with a really big obstacle, a big mistake or challenge? And what did you learn from it?
I'll go personal and then professional again. I think personally, the biggest mistake that I have made is marrying a fixer-upper. Is what I call it. Like, I don't know if you are married or have ever been married, but yeah, I think a lot of people, they meet that guy or that girl and they think, this person has a whole bunch of issues, but my love will fix them. And that's just not true.
No.
So in your personal life, Tom Stanley wrote 2 books called The Millionaire Next Door. And the second book he wrote is The Millionaire Mind, and he talks about the correlates of wealth. The Millionaire Next Door was about what are the common traits of millionaires. The Millionaire Mind was about decamillionaires, people who are worth 10 million or more. Mm-hmm. And in both cases, one of the correlates of success is getting married and staying married to the same person. Yeah. So in terms of personal life and regrets, I think I would say that was my main regret is marrying a fixer-upper. If you're going to go on a coast-to-coast drive from California to, I don't know, New England, and you're like, that tire, it's got problems, but I think it'll get me there if I just really hope and pray it'll get me there. You're going to break down somewhere in the middle of the desert and out west and not going to make it to your destination.
Yes.
So I think that's true in marriage as well.
Yeah. And how did you deal with that? That's a big change that you had to go through.
Yeah, the way that I dealt with it was sometimes whether it's in a personal relationship or a business relationship, you realize that you're in a relationship that's not working. In my case, I was in a relationship with a spouse who was unfaithful. And so for me, this isn't what we agreed to. This isn't what we both wanted when we started out here. So in my case, she was unfaithful. So I felt I had to, and I did have to end the marriage.
And how did you get through that time, that struggle? What pushed you through?
It was really hard, but I would say what got me through was family. I have an identical twin brother.
Oh, wow.
He's very good looking, but he was very supportive. And sometimes when you're in a bad relationship, you're trying to tell yourself, oh, it's not so bad. And maybe things will get better. And I was going through some things and trying not to talk trash about your spouse. So that's a good thing to do. But I was talking to my brother about what was going on. And he ended up reading some texts and he was like, dude, she's talking to you or nothing. Like you don't matter. And why are you tolerating that? And this was from the woman who's also being unfaithful, having an affair with a coworker. Right? So,
sometimes you need someone to really point it out, right?
You need someone who loves you and who cares about you to help you have an adamantium spine and to stand up straight and to be like, I value myself more than to tolerate this or to continue in this. So that's what I would say personally. Don't marry a fixer-upper. It's a bad idea, and it'll affect your personal life and the life of your family and your friends, but it also negatively affects your business life as well. Going through an expensive divorce, which I didn't in my case, thank God, but some people cheat, or I think men percentage-wise cheat more often. They leave with half the stuff, and so it's not good for business to to be married to a person who is not reliable and is not faithful and who doesn't contribute to your, you know, well-being and health, etc.
Yeah, really good advice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, business wise, I would say the biggest mistake I've made in business is being what my rich uncle calls getting carried away by Mr. What I mean by that is if you're an entrepreneur or a business person and you see an opportunity, you get all excited. Ooh, if I just do this, then it's going to totally blow my business up and it's going to be in a good way and it's going to be great. This is the key to all my problems. This is going to solve my cash flow issues. This is going to get us where we want to go. I remember talking to my rich Uncle Johnny and saying, "Hey, Uncle Johnny, man, we can go to New York Comic Con and have a table there and we can bring our comics and we'll meet big and fancy New York people and it'll make a difference in our business." And he goes, "Mark, I'm happy to loan you the money, but here's what I want you to think about. I hear a whole lot of Mr. Excitement going on over there. Mr. Excitement will make you do things that you shouldn't do because you're all excited. Mm-hmm. So instead of being realistic about it, you get all excited and you make a mistake. So I want you to go and think about it and I want you to call me back." So I thought about it. I called him back and I was like, "Yeah, this is exactly, oh boy, I'm so excited. This is exactly what we need to do, Uncle Johnny." So he loaned me the $5,000. We went to New York Comic Con and we didn't even sell like $1,000 worth of comics in this place. Oh, and there's so many other independent comic book companies there. We're just another small fish in a really big pond. There's all these other companies competing for whatever movers and shakers might be there looking for something like us. Yeah, I think Mr. Excitement will always get you in trouble. And another place where Mr. Excitement gets you in trouble is if you're moving forward with some kind of partnership or some kind of business alignment with somebody without a written agreement, without making really clear what you expect of them and what they can expect from you, that has dates and deadlines and expectations spelled out in writing, you're going to get yourself in a world of hurt. Mm-hmm. So getting ahead of yourself, especially partnering with the wrong kind of people, is a big regret, a big mistake. That's cost me a lot of money, like tens of thousands of dollars. So.
Yeah. Really good advice all around right there, all around. And I very much identify with that Mr. Excitement. It's a little bit of a problem with myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that. I'm curious, Mark, what is your definition for success? And based on that, what do you believe is key to having continued success in life?
Persistence. I think it was John D. Rockefeller who said persistence conquers all things. So just deciding I'm not going to quit. I may have to change gears. I may have to change my approach. I may have to rework some things. I may have to take some players off the field and put some new players out there, but we are not going to quit. We are going to win. And I'm from Atlanta, and the last time the Atlanta Falcons got into the Super Bowl, we played the Patriots. Mm-hmm. I think Atlanta was up by 2 or 3 touchdowns at halftime, and they're like, "Oh, we got this, no problem." But you see that quarterback for the Patriots come out there in that second half, basically by sheer force of will, deciding we are going to win this game. And sure enough, they won. And that kind of hardened tenacity, and no matter what happens, we are not going to quit. We are going to cross the finish line.
Yes. I love that, the hardened will. It makes me think of, ironically, Napoleon. Napoleon would always say, "I will it." And that's something that always stuck with me because that man went from nothing to an emperor.
I think Napoleon is a great example of a person who, by sheer force of will and skill, at least in the first half of his life, was amazing. And you think about things in business. If you are tall, if you're a 6'4" guy, everybody looks to you to be the leader. Why is that? It's just our nature as human beings. So if you're a guy who is 5 feet tall, I think Napoleon was, there's a reason why Napoleon always gave speeches from atop a horse. Exactly. Because he understood that if he was standing down there looking like he was standing in a hole, his men would not, quote unquote, look up to him. So he would give speeches from a horse, and he would always make sure that he was standing on some kind of platform and higher than the people that he was leading and addressing. So those kinds of visuals and leadership is important.
Yeah.
If you're
Psychologically.
Yeah, if you're in the fashion industry and you show up with crummy clothes on at work every day and you're the leader, your team is not going to follow you. They're going to be like, we don't trust this person. They don't know what they're doing. So thinking about those visuals, thinking about what's necessary and critical and what's not necessary and critical. There's this real estate investor in Florida named Ben Shaman or something like that. But he talks about how the guy who mentored him in real estate would basically say, we got to paint the front of the building. We got to and fix it up in the front of this hotel that we're buying. So, okay. What about the rest of it? Nope, not going to do anything with the rest of it. Just the front. And it's going to cost us about 1/4 of the money, and we're going to pocket the difference. And he remember thinking, oh, that's weird. That's odd. But they asked him, have you used that in your 40-year career of, real investing in multi, $1 million real estate deals? And he's like, yeah, all the time. So knowing we got to paint the front, but we don't got to paint the back is critical in business. I think sometimes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, are there any habits you've developed over the years that you feel benefit your life in a great way?
I think habits are critical. I think getting up early is critical. 4:30 is great. If you can get up at 5, that's great. Getting up early, especially if you have kids and you have a lot of kind of chaos that starts at about 8 in the morning or 9, or whenever your kids wake up, you need to have some of that morning solitude, some time to yourself that you're thinking about, what do I want to accomplish today? What are my goals? Maybe get in an hour of exercise or half an hour at least first thing in the morning, so that you get that done, because exercise is critical for health reasons. Being able to if you have to work long hours, even in short bursts, you can work a lot better if you are exercising regularly, getting enough sleep, that sort of thing. I think writing down your goals and reviewing them at least once a month, if not every week or every day even, and having dates and deadlines on those things and very specific deliverables to yourself will assure that you're actually working towards those goals and accomplishing them.
Yeah, all really good. Yeah, and that the exercise you said, like the short bursts, like even if you can't do a long bit at the end of the day or beginning of the day, the short bursts make a big difference and help clear your mind and make you more sharp, I would imagine, at whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, the best thing for stress is to go for a walk. Go outside, breathe in some fresh air, get a little physical activity to get the blood moving in your brain and your body. And sometimes the solution will appear because you're not sitting at your desk all hunched over. What am I going to do about this problem? How am I going to fix this? How am I going to get this person to do what I want? How am I going to pay for this? All these things. Going for a walk is a great way to deal with that. But also having a group of peers, somebody that you can call, a mentor or a colleague who will talk through problems with you and help you solve problems and deal with a crisis.
Yes.
When you're going through a crisis, the Godfather needed his consigliere, right? He needs his right-hand man or his right-hand woman to say, hey, look, we're in a crisis now, but I'm going to advise you and we're going to think through this together and we're going to create a plan and we're going to execute that plan and we're going to win.
Yes. Yeah. We all need people. Every single person needs somebody that they can bounce ideas off of and
absolutely
work through all of the things that we go through. Yeah. Now, have you ever struggled to find a new role throughout your career?
I think I've struggled to find, as an employee, I struggled to find the income that I felt that I deserved. I would be, in the data integration world that I worked in was in the healthcare field. And if you're working for somebody else, if you're working for that boss man or that boss lady, they're typically going to pay you just enough to keep you from quitting, or they're going to pay you a whole lot in exchange for basically having every minute of your day, your life. It's the golden handcuffs thing, right? So early on, I was like, hey, I need to make more money than I'm making. And here's all the statistics for this role in similar organizations. And I would lay this down in front of the boss man and he'd be like, I disagree. And that's not what we pay here. No. What do you do with that? You either suck it up and go, well, okay. Like in that movie Office Space, Milton is sitting there. They told me they were going to move my desk one more time, but I told Dom that if they moved my desk one more time, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. And there were two squirrels outside my window with my old desk, and they were married. But then they switched to the swing line stapler. You become Milton, sitting in your cubicle saying, I'm unhappy here. I'm not getting the kind of work opportunities that I want. I'm not making the kind of income that I feel that I should be able to make here. So you either become Milton or you say, I'm going to fire you. And in that case, that's what I did. 6 months later, that boss, I walked into his office and I fired him because I got a job not just making what I was asking him to pay me, but making double what he was paying. So
I so love that you put it that way, that you fired him. Just want to say that.
Yeah, and I would say to some of your listeners, be patient. Again, my rich Uncle Johnny told me you don't take off from one airport until what other airport you're going to land at. But if you're in a job where the boss yells at you or he swears at you or you say, hey, I feel like being paid this amount is fair, and they go, nope, sorry, get back to work, then if you don't want to become Milton, then start making a plan and either find another role position that is more in line with your skills and abilities. Go fire that boss.
Yeah, excellent. That's a perfect story right there. As a recruiter, this is something I deal with a lot with people. And that's the advice I give them when they're looking for something new and they're talking to me. I always tell people, I'm like, look, if there's anything your current company can do to keep you, go talk to them now. Go ask for it now. Give them all the reasons why you deserve it and ask for it now. And if they say no, now, and when you go and find that other job, they're not going to give it to you when you deserve it. So if they try to counteroffer you, you're going to know you're going to find yourself in the same exact position 6 months down the road. If they say no, they gave you your answer and exactly what you did. You go find something else before you quit, find that other role and make yourself happy. So I applaud you for that. That was perfect.
Well, and it felt really good. And I would just encourage people, don't sit at your job and gossip about everybody. Don't sit there and complain about how lousy this job is. I'm friends with a distant relative on social media, and all she does is complain about her job at Walmart. And I'm like, what do you think a job at Walmart is going to be like? It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be crazy. It's just the nature of the beast. So don't sit there. Take action to do something and make a plan and execute it. And that company that I went to making twice the money, I got to a point with them where I was like, I was in the golden handcuffs and there was some shady stuff going on. And I was like, I'm not down with this anymore. And they're like, oh, if you want to leave, we hate to see you go. And I was like, oh, no, I'm leaving. But here's the circumstances under which I'm leaving. So I got a big severance, and I used that severance to launch myself into full-time Terminus Media.
Yep. Cool. Now, have you ever experienced ageism yourself? I'm curious.
Working in the technical world, yeah, you come across ageism all the time, where what they want is someone who is brilliant at all these technical programming and stuff, but who's really, in some cases, really cheap. They want the $150,000 a year guy for $70,000.
100%, yes.
And so you're going to get one or the other. You're going to get the $70,000 guy for 70 or maybe 80, but you're not going to get the $150,000 guy for 70. I was in a management role in the data integration, and my company is like, let's hire the cheaper guy and expect him to perform at the more expensive guy's level. And I was like, you're not going to get that. And the $70,000 a year guys, they're not worth $150,000 a guy. You need 4 or 5 of those cheap guys to make one of the high flyers. So just getting them to understand that, like, somebody who is a really skilled engineer, Elon Musk talks about this all the time. What is the throttle on your business? And he's like, the throttle on my business is being able to find enough extraordinarily talented engineers to do all the things that I want to do. There's in any industry, there's a whole bunch of turkeys kind of waddling around talking about how great these acorns on the ground are. And boy, let's chat about stuff at the water cooler. When you find an eagle, man, that eagle's going to do things and open up new product opportunities and knock out stuff that those turkeys can't do what an eagle does. They can't fly high like that. They don't have the talent.
They haven't had years experience under their belt to learn all the things that the eagle learned.
That's right.
There's some things that you learn through going through life And in these industries, especially when you have someone who's gone through an industry for 20 years, my goodness, the things that they've seen compared to someone who has 7 years experience, you can't cram all of that into 7 years.
No, that experience is invaluable. The guru, and if we're talking about technical stuff, that guru, there's nothing that guy has not seen. He's seen everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like your little problem, he's like, okay, yeah, we'll fix this. It'll take a little bit of time, but we'll fix this. You get a young guy with no experience in there, and you say, hey, man, we need this by next Tuesday, and he's overwhelmed, and he just got out of college, and he's just moved into his apartment and got his futon set up, and he's just not going to be able to do the things that seasoned professional is going to do.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So we all need everyone to be hearing this and making some changes in the business realm, if you ask me.
Yeah, and if you get one of those eagles, you better take care of him.
Yes, you better.
That guy or that girl is in demand, and they're getting calls and emails all the time from recruiters saying, hey, man, you happy where you are? You happy where you are? Let me know if you're not, because I got some opportunities for you. But so if you get an eagle, take care of them, because if you take care of them, eagles attract other eagles, and your business is going to go really far.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. I'm one of those people calling the eagles.
Good.
So now I wonder, you mentioned a couple of books earlier about to take a look. And I'm just curious if there are any other books or talks, videos or movies that you've read or watched that had a really big impact on you that you think others would benefit from as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite books is about John D. Rockefeller. It's by Ron Chernow. It's called Titan. And John D. Rockefeller, who's from Ohio, and he was so good at the oil business that his enemies had to weaponize the federal government to stop him. When he got into the business, they had all these wildcat oil drillers who were drilling oil out of the ground, and it would catch on fire, and you'd have these blazing infernos, burning oil rigs, and they would ship the oil in barrels down the river, and then the barge would sink, and the top of the river would be covered in oil that then would catch on fire. And so you have this burning river. When John D. Rockefeller came into the business, he realized that oil was going to be a huge deal. So he was in a bad partnership at the time, and he managed to get out of that partnership and create one of the most successful businesses in U.S. history, Standard Oil. But that book, Titan, if you want to, there's a lot to learn from a man like John D. Rockefeller in terms of his daily routine, the way that he thought, the kind of partners that he brought around him, and the kind of partners that he fired early on in his career that enabled him to be successful. So highly recommend that. One great book, How to Think About Business and Personal Finance, is the classic Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I would say that's a great book that's really shaped my thinking about business and money. So yeah, those are two books.
And I have it on my list. So I'm glad you mentioned it, because that was one that I pulled up the other day and said, you know what? This is one of those books that were so big and I never read. I should do that. So I'm going to make that next one. I'm also adding Titan. So thank you for that.
One thing I would recommend with books is I'm an avid Audible listener. You spend any time in the car driving back and forth to work or driving to client appointments, that vehicle can become what Zig Ziglar called it, automobile university, redeeming that time in the car by listening to audiobooks. I've listened to hundreds of audiobooks via Audible, and so I would highly recommend that.
Really wise. Yeah, I'm turning that time into a time where you can proactively feed your mind. That's a blessing. Yeah. So before we go, is there anything that the listeners should know about your work as far as being able to find you, or if there's any services that they should be aware of?
Sure. Just recommend folks go to our website, terminusmedia.com. It's TerminusMedia.com. And you can see the comic books that we're producing, Dominion, Follow the House of Saul, and the other book we mentioned, Samson Rise. We have a couple of other titles there. One that I wrote called Platypus versus Monkey, which is more cartoony and kid-friendly. Yeah, as well as a title called Radio Free America. But all of them are faith and family-friendly, and we also do creative services. So, if you're looking for a way to promote your business, and people read comic books solely so if you want marketing materials for your company in in a comic book form, it's going to make that content pleasurable for them to
Really
take in and create more business opportunities for you. Yeah, check us out. We'd be happy to help folks with that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. So before you go, then I want to ask you my last question, because I always love to hear what people say.
Mm-hmm.
What are you sure of in life?
The one thing that I'm sure of in life is the faithfulness of God. People will let you down, and people will disappoint you eventually, even good people, even great people. But God will never let you down. He's always faithful. He's always there. And if you're going through a valley and it's a dark time and you feel depressed and you feel upset, just know that God is present. He's one step away. Yeah, that's one thing that I know.
That's beautiful.
Without a doubt.
Oh, thank you, Mark. That's wonderful. I really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
I loved Mark's story. Mark was firmly involved in his data integration job, work that was serious and structured, and he found himself missing that creative edge in his life. I'm sure many people can relate to that feeling of something being missing yet needed in life. Mark did not ignore that feeling, which, let's be clear, many, many people do. And when we ignore these sides of ourselves, the sides that are part of us, calling out need, that is when we get ourselves in trouble and start going down the wrong paths. But Mark did not ignore. He listened to that need and he found himself a creative outlet after hours. He had always loved writing, so he found a group of other writers to work and brainstorm with for fun. They were writing screenplays together and supporting each other in their creative dreams. They wanted to get their screenplays noticed, but they did not live in the ideal location for doing so. Together, they brainstormed and decided to start developing comic books and animations to promote their screenplays. Those animations and comics then caught the attention and interest of many others who soon were coming directly to them asking for their help with their own projects. This group that was getting together for fun and support around their creative hobbies then turned those creative hobbies into a successful, thriving company providing creative services to a variety of corporations and customers. Amazing. What greater gift than to be paid to do the thing you were choosing to do for fun? It makes me think of the Confucius quote, "Choose a job you love and you will never have worked a day in your life." If you are having that feeling of something missing yet needed, do not ignore it. Dive into it. What is it that is missing? Is it a creative edge? Is it a serious edge? Is it more connection? It's different for everyone, but what is the same is what happens when we ignore it. And the result is never good. You do not have to make huge changes to create a positive impact in your life. You can learn from Mark's story and simply give space to that need after hours or on a weekend. Connect with others who are interested in what you are interested in and grow together. Maybe something new will come of it, like a company developing for Mark. Maybe it won't, but what will happen is a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of contentment, a feeling of scratching that itch that will make you an all-around better person in both your personal and professional life. Make room for that which you need. Mark also shared something profound from his early business experiences, that conflict is necessary. conflict is not a good thing or a bad thing. And I loved his example here. Just like fire isn't a good thing or a bad thing. It's all about context. Fire in a fireplace is good. Fire going wild in the forest, very bad. Conflict can be the same. Conflict not dealt with, very bad. But conflict leading to resolution is a very good thing. As Mark shared, it is easier not to change. It is easier to stay stagnant and not develop. It is conflict that will show up and shake you out of your complacency. I find this to be another one of those universal truths. If we choose not to do anything about a situation that is impacting us negatively, eventually the universe will make the decision for us in some way, shaking us out of our stupor and forcing us to deal with the situation that we have been desperately trying to ignore. Is there something in your life you have been trying to ignore? If so, I urge you to deal with it yourself now. Have that difficult conversation. Make that difficult decision. Do not wait for the bigger conflict to arise. Do it now. Communicate now. The longer you put it off, the worse the situation will become. I appreciated Mark's story and advice around Mr. Excitement. I myself have a very active Mrs. Excitement who lives inside, and she has definitely gotten me into trouble before. It's one of those things I say is a superpower that can at times turn into a weakness. Mark's advice here was spot on. It is imperative to be realistic, researched, and grounded when making big decisions. Set expectations and written agreements are imperative when moving forward with any business alignment or partnership. Being smart about the people you choose to partner with, both in business as well as personal, will make a massive difference in your success and fulfillment. If you happen to be involved in something and your Mr. or Miss Excitement is off the hook, remember to check in with yourself. Have I asked all the questions I should be asking? Have I gotten the information that I need? Has everything been communicated clearly? And if you're not sure what you need to know, ask someone else who has gone before you. What are the questions you should be asking in this situation? Do yourself this favor. I enjoyed our talk about Napoleon. I have always been fascinated by his story. Going from a nobody position, someone who was dismissed early in life, to working his way up a system that normally was not accessible to outsiders, and literally crowning himself emperor. All through the sheer determination of his will. I will it. Persistence. Persistence conquers all things. Perception sure does help too. Just like Napoleon making sure his speeches were given from a horse or platform so that people are looking up to him, or the real estate investor who jazzes up the fronts of houses. You too need to look at your goals and decide what optics are most important for your own success. Corporate people must have strong LinkedIn profiles. Fashion industry experts must have strong Instagram profiles reflecting their style. Teachers need to have an invigorating classroom atmosphere. Ask yourself, what perception is needed to help me reach my goal? It's such a simple question that can start to illuminate things you haven't thought of before. I've been thinking about this myself when it comes to my podcast, and it made me realize my logo does not give the best perception of what this podcast is all about. That's a simple change that I can make to positively impact the growth of this podcast. I admit, it's not something I considered until I asked myself that question after this podcast interview. If you have any suggestions for me, feel free to send them my way. I'm easily found on LinkedIn. I loved Mark's advice about what to do if you're unhappy in your work. He warns against spending your time gossiping and complaining. If you are sitting around gossiping and complaining about not getting chosen for the promotion, then I want you to know you did not get chosen because you are someone who chooses to sit around and gossip and complain as opposed to doing something. You can change your situation. Make a plan and execute it. Do you want to move up the ranks? Start acting as if you are in that role. Mentor people below you. Look for ways you can make a positive difference. Find ways you can contribute more. Is there something that your current employer can do to make you happy? Sit down and figure out what you need. Then take that time to understand why you deserve it so that you can share that with your boss. After doing your best to prepare for your talk, make that appointment with your boss and ask for what you need and offer why you deserve it. If they tell you no, ask them what you could do in order to get where you want to be. If you have growth that is needed, this is the perfect opportunity to learn what areas those are and brainstorm with your boss on ways you can better yourself and grow. Prove that you are the one to consider for the future. You must first be that which you wish to become. If they are unable to give you a clear path to what you need or flat out refuse to discuss, now you know. You know you are not being valued. You know there is no clear path to growth. With that knowledge, you can make your next decision, and hopefully that will be to find a place that can provide you with what you need. Do not quit your current job until you find a new one. Psychologically, you will be more appealing to a hiring manager if you are currently working. Stay in your role and up-level your game. You want to go out on a high note, and you want to learn everything you possibly can while you're looking for your next role. Identify all the things that are important to you in your next position, and then start going after the companies and opportunities that embody those ideals. Be patient. Do not settle. Take the time to find the right next opportunity for you. You deserve nothing less. There were lots of other great takeaways, but I'll leave you with this last suggestion. I love that Mark uses his commute time to listen to books on Audible. He has turned his vehicle into an automobile university. Think about all the time you spend commuting, whether walking, riding, driving, public transport. These are hours and hours every week that could be used bettering your mind. Imagine the growth you could experience by simply feeding your mind the right kind of information, even for half of each commute. What are you feeding your mind these days? Is the information you are consuming making you a better person? Are you learning? Is it giving you more understanding? Are you gaining spiritual or intellectual growth? When I look back at the dark times in my life, I can see how much I neglected to feed my own mind during those times. Instead, I allowed myself to be fed that which did not serve me. So this is my wish for us all, that you become focused on good food to feed your mind, that you proactively choose to look for the information that will raise and grow your mind in a positive and proactive way every single day. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Subscribe and follow us on all streaming services, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Player FM. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fresh Blood Podcast. If you liked today's episode, please consider giving us a like and sharing with a friend. I hope you make today a most fulfilling day.